the biggest issue with like newer fighting games is like the ratio of risk reward. I think, and I mean, we've been talking about accessibility for a while now, and I just feel like fighting games getting easier is not really the problem. It's just people make it a big deal, but like don't ever look at the actual like cause of it. I feel like I'm gonna be talking about this topic for a good while, at least till the end of the year probably. But like it's just gaming culture in general is getting soft, so like they don't want to spend all the time to learn to get good. So like having something more simplified just makes it easier for these people to pick the game up and play. And to be honest, I don't really see anything wrong with just kind of being able to pick it up, but like I think people put too much of an emphasis on like, yo, some new players are gonna beat me. Accessibility is okay, they're gonna achieve the goal they want. I feel like making it accessible makes like, yeah, of course, new players are still gonna get messed up. Easing the barrier of entry for the game is it's never a bad thing, because fighting games are still pretty personal. It's up to them if they want to improve. If they want to improve, they gotta play the game. If they're not willing to play the game to improve, that's on them. There's nothing else to it. They want sales, right? They want to increase sales. They want to increase viewership. So yeah, freedom of expression. I mean, it's like I agree in a lot of ways about that statement. I feel like you can balance out that ratio. I feel like, I mean, I'm gonna be that dude and say, yo, boys are talking all that good stuff. That like, oh, Dragon Ball's gonna be easy, blah, blah, blah. Yo, BB Tag is piss easy, da, da, da. Okay, fine. You know, it's not. I feel like Dragon Ball's like really good. And I do think BB Tag ended up really good in that regard. But bad job with Street Fighter 5. I think Street Fighter 5 is at a good point now, but it's kind of like, it's almost in a sense too little too late for mad people who enjoy Street Fighter, you know? Like, so here's the sad part about Street Fighter 5, right? Street Fighter 5 has like everything set up for it, like great, right? CFN is a dub, all the shit surrounding CFN is a dub, you know, the replay system, the ability to not have to go to YouTube, you can just go watch on the you can just turn the game on and just go watch a match, you know what I'm saying? All that shit, frame data, all that shit. Frame, you know, test out your frame kills, Oki, training mode's pretty godlike, all that shit's great. Everything else after that, once you get past that, the game is like, it's pretty sus. Like, what is going on here, you know? And like, I get it. I think the first year of Street Fighter 5, everyone's like, what the hell? You know? Including the lag, including all the stuff that they did to it, you know? So it's like, really, if Capcom just let the game sit in the oven like one more year, I think it could have been better. But they just chose to release it too quickly for the esports move. And like, I get it. They wanted to try to get it popping, you know? And I kind of don't blame them, but I blame them at the same time, you know? Because it's like, it's such a premature move to just put that shit out there into the wild and like, try to get people to play something, to get people super excited for, you know, the newest Street Fighter when like, Ultra had only been out for maybe like a year or less. It's like, it's too soon. But see, one of the things that's like the difference between free model and paying is that when you pay, you want a complete package. When you get a free to play game, it's kind of like you kind of get the bare bones, and that's what you get, you know. This is what it is, you know. Like for example, League of Legends, you get a lot of the story bits and pieces from like the promotional videos, the stuff that they put out. It's maybe the interactions within the game, you know, the little lore blurbs you read about the characters, but like, you're not getting a full-fledged story mode game. You're getting compete against these motherfuckers with your motherfuckers, and someone gets that freaking base. That's the game. If I'm dropping 6, I need hours of content. Yeah. Here's the problem with the game community. Either they are perfectionists and it takes them forever on the game, or they rush it for the money. I agree with it more or less. I think there's like there's a lot of give and take with that statement. But I don't disagree. Like, when we get into accessibility, when we get into the things of like accessibility, you get into like a complete package, you know, like what really keep these games alive are the casuals. The tournament players only make up so much. It's no different than League, it's no different than all the other games. The difference is those games have they have a larger audience. You know, that's why I'm super happy that Twitch Rivals was a thing. You want to see their production schedules, you know, when like it comes to that, right? The issue, I think, if you look at Capcom's most recent thing, the leaks, that are very unfortunate, like you'll see like their release schedule for Street Fighter 6. Like that shit's kind of like, what? Really? You're gonna release like the update to the game like another year later? and then within the following later on in the year, like the next one, it's like there's like almost no time for the versions to sit. Like they're just kind of pushing it. That's crazy. It does feel scummy. Like you're milking the player so hard. I don't want to be buying like new versions of games all the time. One version that keeps constantly updating, I'm okay with that. But all that other stuff, nah. Like, my money is valued, you know? The consumer's money is valued. I do hope that more games kind of follow in that with that model. The thing is, they're not really missing out on money. Like, if you ask my honest opinion, like, updating the game like that consistently while still making DLC a thing, I think it's fine. I think that they make more money with the costumes than they ever will making people buy a newer game. I mean, Chun got mad costumes, you know? Ryu got mad costumes. Ken got, like, everyone got mad costumes. Like, it's good. It's really just the skins, man. Like, people are willing to pay for those customizations, you know? Like, as long as they keep that, like, as a thing, custom, like, the ability to, like, keep purchasing skins, there's so much more money in that business model than there is, hey, buy the new update, because that's an outdated business practice. At this stage in the game, they can't keep charging you full price for a brand new version of a fighting game. That shit's been over since like 2012. Like we can't run that back. That's just not a good look. Like if it's not like one game with massive updates, then it's not worth your time. I honestly believe it's fine to give them the money for the cosmetics, and the cosmetics help build more things for the game, etc. Like those things help fuel stuff, and like mad people have bought hella Chun-Li outfits. I'm sure they have. That's just it. The only thing that's difficult about fighting games in comparison to shit like League is like, and like Dota and shit like that, is like those games are the game, right? So what I mean by what that entails is like there's not going to be a rework for a character. When that character comes out, that's it. That's that character. If they buff the character, then that's good. Otherwise, they're not going to get new animations. Really, it's just they're not going to get new animations to like change their buttons up. Like that's just not going to happen. Like that happens very rarely in fighting games. Like it's very rare that they're like, okay, let's take this character's button, remove it, and give them this button. That's very, very rare that they do that. Instead, they give the moves different properties. Like it might do a sliding knockdown, or it might wall bounce, or it might basically that button might have more value now based on an update. But as for completely reworking the animation, hell nah. Very low likely chance of that. In Dragon Ball, they gave Ginyu an actual level 3 with the Ginyu Force. Kind of lazily done, but it exists. You know, that was a buff to him. They gave him an actual level 3. And, you know, things are like the revenue's coming in, then I think it's kind of warranted for them to maybe take a look at that. Like in Street Fighter, for example, like I like Ed and Falk, right? Both those characters are not very good, with Falk being the better one of the two. I think Ed is a really cool character. I think Ed is a pretty cool addition to Street Fighter as a whole. But like Ed just doesn't do shit. He had a moment in time where he had some good shit, and then they nerfed him for whatever reason. They're like, season 3, Ed's gonna rock. He rocked for like 2 months, and they were like, sorry, homie, we'll take that away from you. And then that was like one of the, like he had like a kit, like his kit was already not that great, but they made it good this time, and then they were just like, nah, this is too good, and then he went back to being like this whack ass character. So I'm saying instead of developing a whole new game, just create new update with a new character too. I mean, of course. But the thing about it is, Kaiten, in fighting games, the way this has been for the last decade plus is like, I mean, you've seen it, right? Street Fighter, Street Fighter 2, Street Fighter 3, and then the iterations that follow up after that, right? And then when those, like, they just move on to the next number in game in the series. You're not gonna see it where like it's a long-term thing, right? Unless players who still like that game are still playing that game. Street Fighter players, whatever, Marvel players, like it's very difficult for them to move forward because the next game may not tickle their fancy like the first one did, you know, or the one that they really clicked with. Because the best fighting game is the one that you click with the most. But then like if there's no community for it, then there's nothing else. And these fighting game developers, they don't support the games like that because a new game for them is more money. It will. I agree. It will definitely work against the fighting game scene at some point. I think that the best route that they can go is to make a game have a long-term game plan Tekken 7 is probably one of the most longest running games, period, right now. Next to Street Fighter 5, I'd say. Like, Tekken 7's been out from arcade to console maybe like 7 years. Somewhere in that ballpark. On console, it's been 3. So, you know, going on 4 now. It's good for the communities that, that like, love their game to stick with it and, like, advance it and keep people who want to play playing. And that's what we call Discord fighters, unfortunately. Like, they just exist in the Discords. You can play within that Discord community. You may not get games like you want to. Like, for example, you can't just turn on, like, Guilty Gear right now and, like, expect to get games. You gotta ask for games. You know, I could play Dragon Ball, like, right now, and I am, but I can go online and most likely get games like, you know, Street Fighter, Tekken. You know, these games aren't like League and Valorant and like CSGO where like they just stand the test of time and people just continue playing. But I think at the end of the day, like if they make a plan, I feel like a 7-year, 8-year plan is like perfect. You know, the other aspect of it is from a tournament standpoint, no one wants to watch the same person win all the time either. But if they shake up, the thing is, if they're able to shake the game up enough each patch, you know, it's good. Also, another thing to note about fighting games is you can't patch too much. If you patch too much, you piss people off. You know why? Because they spend time learning all this tech and they lose the tech because someone says it's too cheap or like it hurts the game. You know, I agree. You can come and see us today, grind hard enough and become one of the best CS players ever. Yeah. Fighting games, you gotta start over. You gotta start over. New game comes out, everyone's on the same playing field. Everyone's starting from scratch unless the people who are testing the game are playing too, or people who got early access, like 2 weeks, 3 weeks early access, are like already on it. The only thing about that is in fighting games, even though they may have that early access, they may have had the early time to play, it doesn't make a difference because people catch up within a month or two. Like the best way right now that they've been doing fighting games, because take for example, right, kind of like League of Legends gets a patch every 2 weeks on a Tuesday or something like that. You do that in a fighting game, oh no, you're gonna piss off mad people. That will not fly, like ever. It will never fly. People will quit. You legit, like, imagine learning this flashbang tech and then it's gone next week. Now granted, that stuff happens in those games, right? Like something might patch and then they might like patch it out, or might add something new and it might be too good and they patch it out. But like, it doesn't get like this big uproar like fighting games. Fighting games, when you lose tech, it's very, very personal because people spend time to figure out how to do that, and then they lose it, and then they lose motivation because it's like, sometimes the tech might be too cheap. At the end of the day, like, it's also part of like the evolution of the game and seeing how players can deal with it. You know, maybe there's a way to deal with it, but we haven't figured it out yet. FPS developers and stuff like that, they're quick to patch those things out because they're fairly game breaking. You know, and you wouldn't want someone to win a tournament like that. You wouldn't want Worlds to look like a piece of shit. Valorant is definitely easier than CS. I could see it. I used to play Counter-Strike a little bit. I've never been good at FPS, but I played it because like internet cafes were a thing back then, and I played with my friends that loved to go to the internet cafes back in the day. To be honest with you, the difference in fighting games and like FPS and everything else, right? They're all equally hard to get into. They just are, right? The difference between fighting games and the free-to-play games and stuff like that is like the barrier of entry starts with your money. That's the first and foremost. It starts with your money. And then once you go past the money portion, then it becomes time. These other games, they're free, right? So you don't have to spend. You just download the game and you're good to go. You know, if you choose to spend, that's on you. But it's not like a necessity, right? Fighting games require you to make an initial investment. And if you want to keep playing the game, you have to keep making those investments for the updates, right? And then at that point, then, you know, once you understand that portion, right? And that's like a later thing, getting updates, right? Knowing your character, matchups, footsies, combos, situational awareness, like all those things are just as hard as like a first-person shooter game or a League of Legends. They're all equally hard, you know? They're all equally hard. To some that don't play fighting games, actually most people find fighting games pretty difficult, to be honest. When we get into Call of Duty, that's a different story. Okay, fair. Call of Duties come out pretty often. They are $60 games. That's another investment. Don't disagree there. With a lot of free-to-play games and FPS games, there's tons of scrubs so people can get in and just play other scrubs and be content. That's true. That's true. I think with things like Twitch Rivals, I think people are starting to understand fighting games. Like if they keep pushing that agenda, they'll start seeing how difficult fighting games actually are And people already see it. See, that's the thing. People already know how hard fighting games are to play at a high level. And that's why there's not that many, maybe there's not that many people who are willing to like make the time to try to play it at that level. The 1v1 aspect isn't very exciting for a lot of people. A lot of people don't like the 1v1 aspect at all. Because they're like, ah, well, whatever, right? You know? But like the team aspect, you know, there's like a sense of accomplishment because you did it as a collective. But fighting games is singular. It's you. You can grow with the community of players, you know, and you all can improve together, you know. But after a certain point, someone gets really good, and then pushes everyone. Everyone just stays equal, and then the push kind of gets a little bit slower. So you have to travel out in order to get that experience. Whereas so like shooters and stuff like that, you just jump online and just climb ladder. You might find a good player. You might find a top streamer who's up there in the game. You might find some of the tournament players, the you know, the challengers, the masters. You know, you may grind and get up there, you know, and you may get that experience. Fighting games, you've got to travel. Like, there's no two ways about it, right? Like, to get to that level, sometimes it's not enough to just play online, especially when the online environment isn't that great for us in the fighting game realm. So it's getting better, but at the end of the day, like, you still have to travel. Traveling to a tournament to get that experience, right, it's pretty big. Like, it's pretty difficult. You have to get out of your own local to get to that level. And that's if you so want to get to that point, you know. It's always up to the person to want to get to that level. Me, I'm a person that likes to, like, I don't like seeing like XYZ player being at the top. Like, I want to challenge them, and I want to have a good match, you know. I cannot say that like I'll always win, but I'll train hard enough to try to get to that point to where I can win. And if I can't win and beat that player, I will work my ass off to get to that point. And that's the kind of mentality you gotta have to play fighting games, because it's very like, it's crazy. I think the average fighting game player has way more drive to get good than any other community. Agreed. I agree with that tenfold. Fighting game players, when they're determined, they're determined. Fighting games are crazy hard compared to a shooter. Maybe not at the highest level, but to get into, it's not even close. Oh yeah, I agree. It definitely takes time. It takes time. The best of every community have that drive too. Yeah, of course. Like, it's kind of an interesting dynamic, right? Like, put this in your pipe and smoke it for a second. The average first-person shooter player, the average mobile player knows a lot more, right? And in a lot of ways, they know a lot more than maybe the average fighting game player, because there's so many resources readily available. The interesting part is exactly what Scrubik said. The drive for the average player to be that good is so much higher, it kind of seems that way. It does kind of seem that way when I think about it, because like, you have to understand the cojones it takes to save up some money and to go to a tournament to go play is so much higher than you just sitting at home and grinding rank. Because in fighting games, no one gives a shit about your rank. Are you winning? You winning a tournament? No. No one cares if you're at the top of Xbox Live or PSN or fucking Steam. No one gives a shit about that. Did you beat Justin? No. Did you have a good match with Justin? Yes. Good shit. You know? How'd you do against Chris G? I got washed. Hey, them's the breaks. Time to train up and get good. Period. There is no, oh man, I grind rank, bro. I'm ready to go to tournaments. You come to an offline tournament with them. You come to an offline event with these online tactics, bro. Stop. Pack it up. Not happening. Not happening. It's not unheard of that there are people who grinded online that have done well in tournaments. That is not unheard of. It's not unheard of, right? But there's a certain, like, there will be a cap where you got to get offline. You got to get to the tournaments. You got to play the people who are up there to understand at that next level, to take your game up there. You know, you're not always going to get that in ranked, especially in these online environments right now. All the top players tend to be in the highest ranks, so that's what causes a misconception. Maybe. The barrier entry is so high in fighters that if you're here, you have a high tolerance, otherwise you would not be here. Yeah, that's true. Like, there's a certain kind of tenacity you gotta have to play fighting games at a high level. It's not an easy feat. It's not. It takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of patience. It takes a lot of effort. Like, it's difficult, man. And when you get to that point where like it clicks, bro, it's like the best shit ever. But the thing about it is, there's also a, you know, there's a certain point when it comes to like playing at that level where you have to ask yourself, are you willing to put in that time to be there and stay there? It's not easy to stay there. I just feel like people understand how hard it is to play fighting games. They realize they can't just come in here and like, dude, even me playing Dragon Ball, like coming back to it, like mad people got like tech. I'm like, man, what are these teams? I get to a point of almost being good, but staying there and staying motivated is so hard. I can understand right now during the pandemic, for sure, no doubt. For sure, with the Twitch rivals thing, there's so much potential for the FGC to grow through it, all that exposure. Oh yeah, definitely. I want to see more of that. Like I said, I'm going to find some kind of way to get in on a Guilty Gear 1. I'm trying to get something going. I want to see it work. So there's two things being said here. See, these are some of the greatest players in my city, Scrubix and Terry. They're speaking from experience, man. Plateaus definitely hit hard. Sometimes you don't know where to go. You don't know where to do next. All you can do is stay sharp to the best of your ability until you either can get to the next event or take what you learned from the event you went to last and like put it to the test, you know? Like, we've all played, you know, from Terry to Scrubix, myself, we've all played some very difficult players. We've all played some difficult matchups. We've all played players who maybe are demons. And, you know, one of the greatest things is to overcome those demons and like overcome like those challenges, you know? It's difficult. But like when you're able to overcome those things, it's like whatever that bottleneck was, like it just opened up, you know, it just opened itself up again, you know? Like right when you thought that you didn't have anywhere else to go in your game, you know, you improved to another point where it's like, damn, dude, I didn't think about that. Or like, you know, damn, yo, I played out my mind. And like you start to see like the improvements. You start to see like, you know, and trust me, I'm speaking from like total experience and watching the people in my own scene grow. And like, if there's anything that I love saying is seeing the growth of a player. You know, when I see players like come start, like when I watch them start and see where they're going and where they're at, it's like, dude, it's a great thing because like, I guess it's like I appreciate the journey because I've been there and I'm still there, you know. Like as good as I am as a fighting game player, it's still not enough, you know. Like, I value, maybe I can't win everything, but I value being consistent. And when I say consistent, I mean consistent top 8, consistent top 16s. You know, I value that, you know. Winning sometimes is very difficult, especially like me in particular. In Guilty Gear, I main a low HP character. Like I can't get hit. I have to play like perfectly, you know. I have to play semi-perfectly, you know, because the second I get hit, it's over. You know? My problem is bad netcode legit kills any motivation and straight up why I won't play fighters. I mean, I look at it like this, right? If you like the game, you can deal with it. If you don't like it, understandable. But I feel like Fighters has done a good job so far of keeping it pretty okay to play online. Like, it's not the best, it's not the worst. I would say of the delay-based games, I would argue it's better than Grand Blue. I know it's kind of a reach, but I think it is better than Grand Blue. And it's primarily because Namco keeps updating their servers every week. If they weren't updating their servers every week to try to keep the netcode stable, I would say you're absolutely 100% correct. I would disagree with you at all. Whatsoever. But because they're actually doing that, and I think the best case scenario for fighters is that they make super... I keep saying the same thing. They make Super Dragon Ball Fighters, they take the new netcode from Tekken and make it that thing for this game. Because the new netcode for Tekken is good. It does have its hiccups, you know, but I will say for the most part, like, it's pretty solid. Like, it's definitely playable, more or less, and it's better than it was before. It's obviously not true rollback, but the fact that they still took the time out, it is still, it's still delay based, but it does have rollback implemented into it. You know, maybe more noticeable in a game like DBZ. I mean, I look at it like this. Tekken's update is still pretty decent. At this stage in the game, ArcSys right now has their rollback crew. So if they can implement it for Super Dragon Ball Z, I mean, it could be good. I definitely don't think that the coast to coast thing that they're saying is that amazing, but you know, they got a shill to get people to play, right? It is what it is. They want people to play the game, so what else are they gonna do? I guess kind of jumping back to the actual topic at hand here, which is, I guess, the barrier of entry, accessibility, you know, fighting games and FPS and all these other genres. Like, I always think it's interesting to me that like people will sit there and play a game like Dota, knowing Dota is really difficult, but will look at a fighting game and be like, I'm not even touching that because it's too hard. It's like mind blowing to me. But I get it. You know, I get it. You know,